introduce the next speaker, and he wrote a beautiful sentence to me that I would like to use for an introduction. This presentation will take from the early Greek philosophy the practical process of how to see, not what to see, and the ways of seeing the horse. I will introduce you the methodology of deepening experience and seeing the horse as a whole, rather than just seeing the whole horse. So I'm very curious.
Sorry, smile. Which way were you doing? That way. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Second one. Okay. Okay, can you hear me at the back? You might not want to. Okay, I've been in practice for about 35 years. So just push it out of the way for a second. My two biggest influences were working in the late 1980s, and this is for the Americans in the audience. I worked under Tom Landry with the Dallas Cowboys. I worked with Ed Too-Tall-Jones, Tony Dorsett. Danny White was the quarterback at the time, and he still owes me money. Because I did actually. There you go. So it's his brother Chad that treated me, so he paid, and never paid me. Just remind him. Yeah, so they were my biggest influence from where my mentality comes from. Unfortunately for the Cowboys, I now support the Rams. That's my team, sorry. My other biggest influence was Henry Bortoft, who I'll show you a picture of in a minute. But most of my influences, in fact all my influences, were outside of osteopathy. And what I discovered, I'm going to show you now, hopefully, and it will disturb you. We had to try and get this information across worldwide. So the next big step, if this works, right, next big step is form a company for social media. So, working again. Okay, so we're on all the social media platforms to get this information across because we had to bypass all the institutions. Institutions are the biggest block for going forward. Even if it doesn't matter if it's osteopathy, it could be any institution. So we had to set up all these social media platforms. The main media platform is McKone Osteopath on Facebook, where we download all the videos, ideas and links. All the audio is... The audio will be on SoundCloud, so all the information today will be put down into audio on SoundCloud as well. I try to put the whole presentation onto my website last night, but the sort of internet at the hotel was slow in posting it. So we're also working with Shazam. Get this to work. If you have Shazam app on your phone, you can go onto the camera and click onto that, and it will download all the information on your phone immediately. We're getting very high tech here. So that's the website. All the information will be there on where to go, how to do it, and all the information from the lecture today will be put down within the next week. There's everything from reading lists, dodgy material, it's all on there. Okay, I would like you to please write down any questions you want to ask me at the end because of time. So if you think of anything, write it down at the end, you can ask me some questions. So what I'm about to show you will leave you usually in one of these 4, if not all 4, responses. So I'll open with a statement from Carl McConnell, who is one of Still's closest students. The idea of separateness should be obliterated. That's not put to one side. That's very, very strong language. Obliterated. Completely out of it, the idea of separateness. Not appreciating this to the full is a pitfall. So striving to get the bones in normal position per se, or perhaps to keep them in position, is simply hopeless. You do not want to set joints, you do not want to put bones back into normal position. In this regard, the bone is simply an idol, and a similar idol could be made of the muscles and so forth. Every time you think of fascia, every time you think of bone, it's a false idol. I didn't have to define this, I could have just left it alone. I found this over 20 years ago. It's taken me this long to work out what they actually meant. This goes against everything you're probably thinking, hence the confusion and the shock. There's more to come. At this late date, many seem to forget the basic discovery of Dr. Still's of the fact of immunity had nothing to do with spines or backs. McKone's book on osteopathy is 700 pages long. There is 12 pages on the musculoskeletal system, 12 out of 700. The whole living structure, not just the backbone, which embraces function or vice versa, is something more than just the sum of the parts. And the sum of the parts is not confined to one class of tissue, example, bones. The practical everyday problem resolves itself into what the individual measure of a particular case is, if we know that. It is not a composite collective one, but a composite and unified with multiplicity in unity. A composite collective one is a motor car. It's composed of parts put together. This is known as unity in multiplicity. A living organism is the other direction. There is no composite. It's a collective one. It's like, it's unified without unification. So our consciousness is really, really important, because once you start to unify with unification, you fragment. So, what we tend to have, we tend to have this sum of the parts mentality, a Lego mentality, where we put things together in our consciousness. Parts put together. Let's go, I'll work around it now. You see, you put things together. So we have this parts. This part comes to our language. You have to watch your language. Once you speak of something as a part, when you think of something as a part, you draw it out of context. Therefore, you're always struggling. That's better. So, unity and multiplicity is what we do today. It's not wrong, it's just the way it is. And we can live with that. We have to recognize that to be able to move on. So unity and multiplicity, each one thing is the many, bringing together many separate elements to form wholeness. This is a car, this is a house, this is a bridge. We all have a blueprint, and then we put the parts together. We do not have a blueprint for living organisms. Seeing each piece as separate from all other parts, reconstructing or rebuilding the world which is already constructed. So you'll sit there and you will rebuild the experience. You'll take that part and say, that's connected to that, this bit's connected to that. But it's not. A wheel is connected to a car, an arm is not connected to my body, unless I lose it and then reattach it again. Okay? Once you think of a part of the body, then the following is unity in multiplicity. Here's another example. We tend to reduce things in unity and multiplicity to common denominators. Anything you think about is a common denominator. If you talk about cranial rhythm, you're talking about a common denominator. A baseline common denominator. This is what genetics is. It's a reductionism. A.T. Still would not have recognized the cranial phenomenon at all. This is connections, this is compositional. We're bringing things together. It is positional, one thing unto another. It is things amongst things. Multiplicity and unity is the many, each thing as the one. Now the one has a capital O. It's not a number one. You are all one, expressing differently. We'll look at that a bit more later. You're one phenomenon expressing differently. Beginning with the whole and keeping the whole in mind at all times. The whole is not a thing. If you make the whole a thing, then the thing must stand amongst other things, which makes it not a whole. It makes it relative to something else. We're going to look at the hologram principle, which is a very, very simple model. Very simple model. We're going to have a quick look at Giuseppe Arcimboldo. This is a 20-year project that I teach in 3 days that you're going to learn in an hour and a half. So just hang in there. Okay? Anything other than multiplicity in unity is not osteopathic historically. Everything is on a historical, cultural basis. Everything. Cannot exist otherwise. So instead of having this reduction in genetics, your consciousness is central to the phenomenon, each of the different phenomena. Your mind, we've done on that, is central. Your thinking is central. There are no connections, no compositional phenomenon putting together. There's no positional, as in I am here, you are there, as in a sense of relativity. There is no nothing, but no thing. Nothing and no thing are completely different phenomena. You can't say there's only the physical and there's nothing. No, there's a physical and there's no thing. So what I've had to do is split this presentation into 3 sections: philosophy, perception, and the patient, which is the horse. Philosophy is obvious. Perception is I'm going to make you see differently. Everything you know now, you will double by the end of this presentation. Everything. That's not doubling, that's seeing it from a different aspect. It's not a quantitative phenomenon. It's a thought phenomenon. So, let's start with philosophy. We are in fact convinced that if we are ever to have pure knowledge of anything, we must get rid of the body and contemplate things in isolation, the soul in isolation. This is the mind. Socrates was not too upset about taking the hemlock. He was accused, those who do not know, of misleading or making the young people of Athens think for themselves. Thinking yourselves is a crime. It's a crime because you're not using the gods. The gods thought for you at that time, so think for yourselves was a crime. So when he's taken to trial, he said, you know what? I don't care about dying because I will know more upon the death. I will shed my body and my soul will be in total isolation to think about the reality. Obviously he didn't come back, so no one really knew. But what he did say was, in the future, there'll be more people like me. I have no problem with that. So Western philosophy has 2 ways of knowing. We only look at one way. We're working through one way, and that's where we have a problem in Western philosophy. We need to not take away what you know, we need to add to it. So everything I'm going to tell you is adding to what you already know. It's not taking anything away. Anything away. So to start with, I have to show you. So, yes, I'm going to show you the most dangerous picture ever in the world. This picture's caused so much trouble. It's caused trouble it started wars, started conflicts, divorces, even that level. This is the School of Athens by Raphael in the Sistine Chapel. Raphael tried to depict the whole of Western consciousness through this beautiful, beautiful painting. So here are names. We have number 16, for example, is Diogenes. I like Diogenes. Notice how he's on his own. The cynic. On his own. This is the guy that sits in a barrel all day long. And when Alexander the Great turns up with his many hundreds of kilometres of soldiers and stands in front of Diogenes in his barrel and says, do you know Diogenes? And Diogenes says, excuse me, mate, you're standing in my light. So pushes him to one side. Okay, we have a few here. We have, who else we got here? Zeno, number 1, what that is. Now you'll see here, a group this side, and there's a group this side. This is significant. We have a split. We have a duality. This is why we have problems in Western society, because of this duality. What we have to do is recognise both halves. Not only that, as a duality, but even a deeper disturbance. There's a much, much deeper disturbance here. This is Plato, this is Aristotle. And the books they have in their hands, this is the Timaeus, this is the Ethics in their hands. Now, it's not their left hands I'm worried about, it's their right hands I'm worried about. One is pointing to the divine. One is pointing to reductionism. One is pointing to mathematics. Because God is a great mathematician. Do not enter my academy unless you know mathematics. Over the door of Plato's academy. He's looking at God. He's looking at the soul. He's pointing upwards. This is how we work today. We work through the soul, we work through mathematics, we work through separation, we work through fragmentation. Look at Aristotle. No. The reality is here. It's not an abstract generalisation, it's not a separation, it's direct experience as opposed to indirect experience. Anything mathematical is indirect experience. So we have to put this back together again. It's because of this separation that we're in so much trouble. Medicine is there. We are there. But we're not. We're actually there. There's nothing wrong with being there, but you need there as well as there. So this is our secret handshake from now onwards. Alright? We have two kinds of philosophy that have arisen out of this up and concrete. That is the intellectual verbal and the intuitive sensuous. Both work together, but we always concentrate on the intellectual verbal rather than intuitive sensuous. You do not cross the road with the intellectual verbal. You cross the road with the intuitive sensuousness. You'd be in a lot of trouble if you try to analyse constantly. You either get run over or you'll be too late. Hopefully it's too late. So this presentation is about seeing the horse as a whole, not just seeing the whole horse. These are two modes of consciousness. So seeing the whole horse is the intellectual verbal. Seeing the horse as a whole is the intuitive sensuous. One is up there, one is down here. Direct. The intuitive sensuous is direct. How do I know this? Well, Still actually wrote about it in 1898. Intuitive consciousness. By following the study of practical reasoning, a person becomes acquainted with the principles to such fullness that he can do good work in all parts and feels no further effort will be required. He does his work well and feels so because of his being master of his trade by practical experience and close observation to the study while an apprentice. Another person of his apprentice class who never lost an hour cannot do as good work and lives a life of confused labour, but stands about par in all other branches. The first man has obtained from study something that the second man has not. The first glides through all kinds of difficult problems with ease, while number two is almost a failure in all places. Why the difference? Perhaps number one has worked for and obtained intuitive consciousness, or made all subjects to his mind beings of life. John. Okay? Beings of life, the mind, that live under laws made for their being. He who succeeds must study the law of all pursuits and trades. To observe and obey is the only way to succeed. He does succeed by obedience to such laws until mind and body becomes equally sensitive to the fact that man must feel that he is right before he can be successful. Feel. Not analyse. Not up here. This is too late, as we'll see later. Definition of a horse. Now, most definitions of horse are very fixed definitions. And we see this through Charles Dickens, our famous ancient writer. So, Mr. Thomas Gradgrind from Hard Times by Charles Dickens. Even then, they were discussing it. In this life, we want nothing but facts, sir. Nothing but facts. So, Bitzer, said Mr. Gradgrind, your definition of a horse. Quadruped, graminivorous, 40 teeth, namely 24 grinders, 4 eye teeth, and 12 incisors. Sheds coat in the spring, in marshy countries or counties, sheds hooves too, hooves hard, but requiring to be shod with iron, age known by marks on mouth. Thus, and much more, Bitzer. Now, girl number 20, said Mr. Gradgrind, you know what a horse is. Says Charles Dickens. But do you know what a horse is by that definition? No. It's a fixed definition. So why have I chosen this dangerous path? Let's get back to McKone again. McKone says, in order to get a proper perspective and setting of Dr. Still's ideas, we believe it will fully repay the student to note the essential features of the thoughts of the Greeks, of Descartes, Copernicus and Galileo, of Hobbes, Locke and Hume, of Kant and Goethe, of Fichte and Hegel, and Darwin, Spencer and Huxley. This is the philosophy. You have to understand these people to understand osteopathic philosophy. Now, what is also interesting is the grouping. The Greeks, on their own, obviously, of Descartes, Copernicus and Galileo. This is astronomy. A.T. Still was a fantastic astronomer. Really, really good astronomer. It's been noted. Astronomy was like the mathematics or Latin of the day. If you learned astronomy, you knew everything. Where are we? Descartes, Copernicus and Galileo, which are the astronomers. Of Hobbes, Locke and Hume. This is British empiricism. Of Kant and Goethe. This is German romanticism. Of Fichte and Hegel. This is German idealism. Of Darwin, Spencer and Huxley. This is evolution. Come on, join in. This is evolution. These are all the things that you have to read. Not you have to read. I have read to bring to you this very short, intense presentation. We have to end in osteopathy, not begin with osteopathy. You have to end in it. When my professor from Sheffield University, Professor Geoffrey Klempner, I did my course in metaphysics and philosophy, he said, osteopath's typical. You've got the books, you've read the books, which is the end. You've torn them into small pieces and spread them out. Someone's doing fascia, someone's doing cranial, so you just lost the plot. The metaphysics is gone. You end in osteopathy, you don't begin with osteopathy. So you have to read that first for this to make sense. Neither osteopathy nor surgery, let alone dentistry, would have got very far by ignoring it. This is the organic approach. They are directly related to the mental operations, which is what John was saying. Directly related to mental operations, not hands, not eyes, which are developed in the philosophy of phenomenology, which we're going to look at. Itself a post-Cartesian outlook. This is after the Cartesian philosophy. This is after René Descartes that John mentioned. Relating this method to the current philosophy of science, osteopathy, cannot be judged in any way less powerful than Cartesian science. Cartesian science is not our science. It's the science that medicine uses. It's the science that all scientific investigations use. It is not wrong. It's just one of the philosophies of Western science. The only problem with Cartesian science, it has no verification procedure relying on falsification alone. What this means is all scientific research has no proof. It only has falsification procedure in Western philosophy, which means you can only disprove previously held knowledge. This is why most scientific papers end with more research needs to be done. And it will go on forever and ever and ever. It's like passing the ball backwards to go forward, which is not a problem. This is why science seems to keep going forward, but in fact it's not. It's just disproving what it previously knew, which is not a problem. There's another science called Goethean science, which entails both falsification and verification. This is the science of osteopathy that we're not using. And thus might be said to be more complete than the Cartesian. Again, the only real problem with this approach is the fact that very few people know of its existence. Welcome to the very few. You are now contaminated for life. You know now there are two types of science. There's the Cartesian and there's the Goethean. There's the Cartesian and there's the Goethean. Both are valid. One is for motor cars, one is for organisms. We're using the motor car one and we don't know it. This is not me, this is New York, this is the Rockefeller University 1977. So, first thing you have to do is get that idea in place. And the idea is not something in your head. An idea under philosophical scientific conditions is the forming of what you are experiencing as an active organizational process. I don't see this skull. I am doing the seeing of the skull as an active formative process, not as a passive recipient where light hits the skull, goes in my eye, and then I see. No, that's passive. That's a machine, that's dead, that's 17th century. We're going to quickly look at that, we'll brush past that. The following people would have understood A.T. Still. In fact, they did understand A.T. Still. Ralph Waldo Emerson understood A.T. Still very well, very, very well. I'm going to whiz through this because of time. Henry David Thoreau understood AT still very, very well. Thoreau went into Walden, which is Emerson's basically backyard, spent a long, long time there, wrote the journal, which is 2 million words, and discovered that, you know what, the last tissue to go is bone in the natural environment, so therefore nature must be closest to bone. It's the most stable tissue in nature. One reason why it's called osteopathy, pathos, to be empathetic with the form of the bone, which we're going to look at. As John mentioned, Herbert Spencer, he wrote First Principles, and as John mentioned, he said survival of the fittest, not Charles Darwin. You might win a quiz question like a pub one, not a bar. Remember that? That's important. I've actually read First Principles. It wasn't easy. Okay, so Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain, Tom Sawyer, he was a big supporter of osteopathy. He defended osteopathy in court in 1901 and helped osteopathy to get state recognition in 1901 by appearing for the osteopaths. Charles Sanders Peirce founded pragmatism. Pragmatism is again the philosophy of osteopathy. Pragmatism is based on the work of Immanuel Kant, which is knowing through doing. Peirce attacked all Cartesian ideas. This is my hero, other than AT still, William James. William James formed again the idea of pragmatism with Charles Sanders Peirce. It works on principles of psychology, which I carry around with me all the time in PDF form, or have both volumes. I digested this book. It is osteopathic psychology to a tilt. Nike took their strapline from William James. Just do it. Don't think about it. Too much analysis leads to paralysis. All psychological approaches are analytical and destructive. The brain is not there. You do not think with your brain. You catch up with your brain. This is what William James said, and we're still using William James today. Greatest psychologist of all time and philosopher. America's only true philosopher. His brother was Henry James, who wrote the Bostonians and the other great works. John Dewey was a good friend of A.T. Still's as well. Well, I say good, he was a patient of A.T. Still's. And so was, what was the name? Helen Keller was a patient of A.T. Still's. So was, who was the rodeo rider, the first rodeo rider? Well, Bill Hickok. He was a patient of A.T. Still's as well. So John Dewey was educationalist, education along the lines of, say, Montessori, for example. It was called Knowing Through Doing. Oliver Wendell Holmes, a great sort of Harvard man. These are all people who were influenced by Still. Still's philosophy would also be recognised in modern times by Edmund Husserl, who was the founder of phenomenology and hermeneutics. The great Edith Stein, who was killed in 1945 for being a German Jew, became a nun to protect herself, was killed in Auschwitz. But she wrote the great treatise on empathy. Again, one of my favourite philosophers, who's completely mental. If you ever hear about Wittgenstein, there are two kinds of Wittgenstein. So there was the early Wittgenstein and the later Wittgenstein. So a Wittgenstein doesn't exist. The early Wittgenstein was more Cartesian, the later Wittgenstein was more Goethean. Wittgenstein's other claim to fame, which I'm not sure he's very happy about, something there's Wittgenstein, there's his classmate, we're actually same class together. There we go, Adolf Hitler and Wittgenstein. So that's another claim to fame. So, Martin Heidegger, these are all names you can look at later. That's fine. It's working that way. Oh, wait a minute, Richard. What it is that cable. If I turn that right around, let's try that. Maurice Merleau-Ponty. I'm just introducing you to names. These are people that I have read that would really understand Still's philosophy. Simone de Beauvoir, existentialist. Jean-Paul Sartre. I'm going to come this side. Jean-Paul Sartre. Hans-Georg Gadamer. Ricoeur. These are all modern philosophers who would have totally understood AT Still. Rabanus. And this was the man that helped me. This was my mentor, other than the cowboys. Henry Bortoff. If you need to read anything on the wholeness of nature, read Henry Bortoff's work. It's all on Amazon. It's all on YouTube. In fact, he's just been put onto YouTube recently, one of his 1998 lectures on perception. And that's where he taught me about how to perceive, how to palpate. And this is the other problem. Schools don't teach you how to palpate, they teach you what to palpate. That's where the problem lies. The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honours the servant and has forgotten the gift. All these philosophers had one person in common. This is where we get the Goethean science from, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. He's the basis of osteopathic thinking. So let's have a quick look at phenomenology, which we said that part was the basis of our thinking, or should be the basis of our thinking. Phenomenology removes the security of models, theories, and concepts. AT still had no theory. This was the problem. The word theory, which we'll see in a minute, probably, if I remember, comes from Plato's Theaetetus, which is where we get the word theatre from. It means to see or behold. AT still had no theory. People complain. Partly what John said about definition of osteopathy. There isn't. He had no theory. What we tend to do in science is we have a theory, we test it, yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. Theory is central to science. But the mistake was, as Henry Baltoff found out, my mentor, it wasn't the fact that Ainsel had no theory. Rather than have a theory and test it, he would go into the experience and build a theory. He ended in theory, he didn't begin in theory. He saw after the patient, he's not seeing before the patient arrives. Not coming with ideas and imposing them upon as abstract generalisations. And this confused everybody. If you impose something, you're trying to catch something that is happening. It's already too late. What you see in a horse is too late. It's the end of a process of metabolism. It's the end of a process of cell building. It's the end of a process of expression. It's too late. It's like looking into a river, seeing your reflection, and by the time you try to grab that bit that you want to grab, it's now down there. We have to think upstream, coming into the process of observation, not what is observed. It's too late. We're going to go through this. So in phenomenology, we're stepping back. We have to step back a bit, not analyse. It's too late. Phenomenology is a stepping back, moving attention within the experience. And that's really hard for people to do. It's not to experience something, that's too late. It's moving your attention from what is experienced to the experiencing of what is experienced. It's increasing self-awareness of what you're doing rather than what has been done. You're going to hate me by this afternoon. From what is experienced, which is the end product, to the experiencing of the experience, and that's the process that works in both palpation and observation. So it's a moving back from what is seen to the seeing of what is seen. We're going to try this. Once we've tried it at the end of doing this, next time you're going to look at a horse, you're going to try this, you're going to go, whoa. Moving back from what is palpated to the palpating of what is palpated. It's a verb, it's a doing, not a done. Catch yourself in the act of palpation, upstream and downstream thinking.